If you travel across the vast Pacific Ocean, you will eventually encounter a small, treeless stretch of volcanic rock. This is Easter Island, the world's most remote inhabited landmass. It sits at 27 degrees south of the equator, separated from the coast of Chile by some 2,200 miles of open water. Geologically, the island is the summit of a single massive volcano, rising over 10,000 feet from the Pacific floor. Today, that volcanic origin defines the landscape, leaving a hilly, rugged terrain covered in sparse grasses. The name it is most commonly known by today was given by Dutch sea captain Jacob Roggeveen, who anchored there on Easter Sunday, April 5, 1722. Since that initial European arrival, the history of this landmass has been defined by competing models. Modern science is only now beginning to untangle the physical evidence from these historical narratives. In the early 1950s, a hypothesis regarding the island's first inhabitants gained massive public traction. It argued that advanced societies of Indians from the coast of South America were the original settlers. The primary architect of this theory was Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl, who built a robust following based on perceived cultural similarities across the Pacific. Researchers have since cross-referenced this hypothesis with extensive archaeological, ethnographic, and linguistic records. The material evidence identifies the original inhabitants as being of Polynesian stock, likely arriving from the Marquesas or Society Islands as early as 318 AD. This origin is confirmed by carbon-dated reeds from ancient graves and DNA extracted directly from skeletons, findings that contradict the South American settlement model. When those Polynesian settlers arrived, they found an island entirely covered in thick forests. It was the region's richest breeding site for seabirds and teemed with landbirds. These abundant bird, fish, and plant sources supported a growing human population, which in turn gave rise to a complex religious and artistic culture. That culture's most recognizable features are its enormous stone statues, the moai, and the massive stone platforms called ahu that supported them. At least 288 of these massive statues once stood upon the platforms, creating a near-continuous line around the island's perimeter. The scale of production was vast. Beyond the completed coastal statues, another 600 moai remain scattered across the island in various stages of completion. The average statue stands 14 feet 6 inches tall and weighs 14 tons. The largest moai reached heights of 33 feet and weighed more than 80 tons. Nearly all of these monoliths were carved from the tough stone of the Rano Raraku volcano. Today, the hillside near the quarry remains covered in incomplete or abandoned statues, showing the volume of work required by the Rapa Nui. Transporting these monuments required between 50 and 150 people. Teams used wind sleds and rollers to drag the heavy stone across the countryside. The engineering of 888 massive monuments suggests a highly coordinated society with the logistical capacity to manage large-scale construction projects. Why did this society dedicate massive timber, food, and labor to carving these stone figures? Archaeological analysis suggests the statues were symbols of lineage-based authority, representing both religious and political power. In ancient Polynesian religions, carved stone objects were believed to be charged by a magical spiritual essence called mana when properly fashioned and ritually prepared. Within this framework, the ahu platforms served as sanctuaries, and the moai were the ritually charged sacred objects within them, actual repositories of spirit. However, some alternative theories move away from this anthropological context. Instead, they focus on the island's ancient names, such as the navel of the world and eyes looking at heaven. Authors like Graham Hancock suggest that the island was a significant scientific outpost and astronomical observatory for a forgotten civilization. This model proposes that the island was part of a global network of markers used to predict meteoric impacts and crustal displacement cataclysms. While these alternative models construct a global grid, material evidence roots the moai in the documented lineage-based authority of Polynesian culture. Despite its engineering achievements, the Rapa Nui civilization eventually suffered a rapid decline. The most prominent modern theory for this collapse is the ecocide hypothesis. In his book, Collapse, Jared Diamond popularized the idea that the islanders were the primary cause of their own societal failure. Diamond's premise states that, As the population grew, its resource needs outpaced the island's capacity to renew itself. According to this model, the forests were entirely cut by the 1400s, leading to soil erosion, the loss of freshwater springs, and the disappearance of bird flocks. Without logs to build canoes, fishing became impossible. Diamond argued that declining food sources led to famine and eventually cannibalism. This theory claims that the resulting social chaos triggered clan wars in the 1600s, during which the great statues were toppled. This model frames Easter Island as a self-inflicted ecological tragedy. However, modern archaeological and historical data suggests a different catalyst for the collapse. Recent studies indicate that the ecological destruction theory relies on assumptions that do not match the historical timeline. The record shows that the social devastation on Easter Island followed the arrival of European visitors. These early visitors introduced smallpox and other diseases to an isolated population that lacked any natural immunity. Biological impact was followed by physical violence. Slavers raided the island, murdered the inhabitants, and brutally removed the survivors to mainland South America. The demographic drop to 1/10 of the island's peak population occurred following these waves of disease and forced labor. The history of Rapa Nui reveals a sophisticated culture that remained resilient for centuries, only to be dismantled by external forces. This investigation into historical models was brought to you by the IELTS FOCUS 0847 705 973.